you know. You know them ones who won. Me no know about you, but me don't think it's bad. Me no know what them a talk about.
Good morning, and you doing it from 98.9 on your radio dial. And those of you who are tuning in on the internet, it's a very beautiful Friday morning. It's a little hot because I'm actually perspiring, but it's always, the sun is out in all its glory. There's a little haze. I think it's from the Sahara dust. It's another thing why we have to be very careful. Wearing our mask is very important because I don't know whether or not we've been informed much about the Sahara dust, but we know that there are lots of things that come down. It's not just dust that you're inhaling. You know, COVID is out there. It's in North Korea, it's in China, and this dust is coming down, and it brings all sorts of things with it. Those of you who have allergies, you have to be very, very careful because it can trigger asthma attacks, and so we have to be very, very careful, not just wanting to just go out and living life like normal. There's nothing as normal to life as it used to be. You know, every day you have to make certain adjustments because it's just not the norm. It's a new norm for us, and we have to start making those adjustments. My name is Sandra Quilly Atherton. You're in tune to Your Views. Your Views is a program that is aired on Win FM every Friday morning at 10 o'clock. I am the host of Your Views. This morning I have with me two guests. Guests. Why? Because we have a male and we have a female. I have with me, it's going to be an interesting discussion this morning. We want to change focus, and I don't want my focus to just be on talking. We want to talk. We want to get some action into it because we're hearing a lot of talk. And I think anybody can talk. Talk is cheap. When I was growing up, I used to say talk is cheap, whiskey costs money. But we have to now look at the situation right now. We don't need any talk anymore. People are being fired because of not agreeing but refuse to resign. And that happens because it was just too much talk and no action. So we know now that we are ready for action. This is not the silly season. This is the season where we have to focus. And if we were not focused before, we have to focus even more now, because the decisions that we make now would determine the conditions of life that we and our children or grandchildren would live in the future. So it is not a silly season for me. It's a season where we have to pay attention to what is going on, keeping our ears to the ground, having a good understanding of what is happening, and not just talking politics. Politics, in St. Kitts right now, it's about money. It's sad, but it is true. I see people going about it in the wrong way. It's not about opportunities. We're going to talk about that this morning, and we're going to see how we can get you to change that focus. It can be deadly. I've seen, and when I come here and I talk based on experience. I've seen, I've heard, and I've heard it from the people who are involved in it, how easy, and when they win seats, it's not about winning a seat, it's about who can buy or who can pay the most for the seats. It's not about the programs that you have, to help and change lives. It's about the money that you could get at this time, the $150 or the $500. I'm going to advise you that can only serve you for a day. You have a life ahead of you. Those of you who are young, 18, you still have how many years ahead of you? So don't let that be the reason why you're going to vote. Start to understand why you're voting for the candidates that you're voting for. Because trust me, a lot of these candidates, they are themselves are in there for what they can get, not because they're interested in the people. Trust me on that one. It's a fact. They are there because of their own personal gains. It's not about us. And let us have an understanding. Let us be able to evaluate for ourselves, look at the situation, and come to our own conclusion. And that is one of the reasons why I don't like to talk, but that's the reason why I sacrifice talking, because I want to make sure that you're properly informed, and information would help you to make the right decision. This morning I have with me a young lady that I've come to admire. really, really admire. Why? I have had conversations with her, and her intentions are great. This is what politics should look like. These are people who should be in politics. These are people who genuinely care. These are people who would have given up their whole life because they want to make sure that the livelihoods of their country is well looked after. She is not a person who needs to be in politics. She's a person who would have basically carved her own path, live a life. I don't know about how affluent she is, but I know that she would have done enough. She's a person who dedicates her life to the service of her people. I can say these things because I've had discussions with her. I've come to my own conclusion. I don't know her personally. This is based on discussion that I would have had with her. I'm very impressed. And Nevis, trust me, please do not give up a chance like this. Do not give up a chance to elect somebody who genuinely care for Nivisians. You need this more so now than ever. The next person I have on my show is a young man who I have chosen to sit with me on Fridays because I've sat with him and I've had discussions, and I know his intentions are good. People can say they can propaganda as much as they want. I always feel, I like when people say negative things about me because it means that I'm doing something good. And that is one of the good things about it. When people start to try to attack you from every single angle, that is in the human nature. They always want to bring you down. And so I have with me Weeks, and I think I called Janice's name. She's the leader of the NRP. Her name is Janice Daniel. She's the daughter, and I don't like this, but I'm going to say it. I don't like to walk in people's footsteps because I think she would have carved her own paths. But I saw, in order for you to understand who she is, she's the daughter of the late Premier Simeon Daniel. I don't think that's the reason why she got into politics, because she would have given you a story. She was never interested, but I mean, you can't choose your parents, and you can't choose your parents' choices, what they want to make, or the path that they want to walk, and sometimes to your advantage or to your disadvantage. Good morning, girls and boy, and girl and boy, because you look like a little girl and you look like a little boy. Welcome to Your Views.
Yes, don't let the looks deceive you. Good morning, and thanks for having me. Good morning, Weeks. And I just want to say good morning to all who are out there listening, especially my two sons. They keep in touch quite often, wanting to know how the progress is going on, and anxious to actually be here on Nevis to do their part as best they can. It's definitely an interesting time. We in the NRP would have re-established, rebranded our party based on what is happening. We were definitely right in the midst of preparing for a local election when we recognize that a federal election is right before us. And so, as any great party would do, any great leader would do, you reassess the situation and you make the necessary changes that you have to deal with. And so I think one of the things that we have to recognize is that in Nevis, for a very long time, we have looked at the federal election as something that is a sink it thing, and we have not really paid the attention, and we have not really taken it as serious as we ought to. And the stats would show that the turnout for the federal election is always lower than the local election. I think now more than ever, people of Nevis, we must recognize that this is a turning point for us. We have seen how we have become so dependent on the federal government for our sustenance. We're not able to pay, salary increases as we ought to. We're not able to develop the social programs as we ought to. And so in terms of our representation at the federal level, that has a whole lot with regards to how Nevis is going to prosper. And you mentioned my father earlier, and people have been looking at, why are we really worrying about the federal election? And the federal parliament is really where you need to be in order to make the necessary policy changes, constitutional changes that is going to bring about the change that you need. Had we not participated and had NRP not joined with PAM back then to bring the country into independence, we would not have had Clause 113. We would not have had our local authority. And so these are things that are important. And once you recognize the reason why you are participating in a process, participating at a certain level, then it's much easier for you to accomplish what you set out to do. And where we are right now, we recognize that there are some changes that must be made. We have seen that for 7 years, this last CCM administration really had not done anything of significance. There's no piece of legislation that you can say really has put Nevis in a much better position. And while the people of Nevis, we consider ourselves to be very self-reliant, resilient, hardworking, but we expect when we ask people to represent us at certain levels that that representation would be in the best interest of the country and not self-interest. And so here we would see where the people of Nevis would have given CCM their wish. They would have sent 3 CCM representatives to the federal parliament and had the opportunity of having the Charleston Accord, which former Premier Vance Emery would have signed along with the leader of PAM and the current Prime Minister. And having that instrument, it was drafted for a reason. The Premier indicated that he himself would have drafted it and included a number of provisions which we felt that had they been taken to the next level would really have put Nevis in a much better position, and we would not have to be worrying each time about how is the federal government supposed to relate to us. How is the federal government in a position where in Nevis we're not seeing any advancement with renewable energy? Our geothermal project is dead. The cost of electricity keeps getting higher and higher. Whereas in St. Kitts, you can see a $70 million solar facility, which in the long run is going to reduce the cost of electricity for the people of St. Kitts. So we see the two islands moving farther and farther apart, and unfortunately to the detriment of the people in Nevis, because we have not had the proper representation at the federal government. We have our local legislature. We have the ability to create ordinances. We have the ability to attract investors and create development opportunities in Nevis without even having to rely on the federal government. It is clear that the Premier does not recognize or does not value the importance of having the NIA and how it can be utilized in the best interests of the people of Nevis. And so at the risk of what may happen in the next federal election, should CCM and PAM form the next federal government, it's really a concern to the people of Nevis. We have heard the leader of PAM indicate his intent to pursue republic status for St. Kitts and Nevis. And, you know, one must question what would that do to the Constitution and the constitutional rights that the people of Nevis now have. And we have seen where PAM and CCM, they're not able to implement a simple Charleston Accord to take the necessary steps. They don't have the ability to even, implement or to get a motion of no confidence established, and the Prime Minister, fired all of them. And so, if the intent of this leadership is of a PAM-CCM collaboration is to take the country into republic status, and there is no guarantee that they even understand how to operate within the local parliament as it exists right now, then the people of Nevis, we really must see this as a threat to a lot of the autonomy that we now enjoy, and understand that we have not been able to generate our own revenues for a very long time. Like I say, Nevis and St. Kitts, they're going apart. Unfortunately, Nevis is getting to be in a worse position, and we really feel that it is important for us to have representation with meaning, representation where you can see the reason why you are participating at a certain level. We have not seen that with the CCM representation at this level, and each time that NRP has been involved in a federal relationship coalition, we can point to the way that Nevis would have benefited, because the NRP representatives, we have this saying right now, Nevis first, and whatever we do, it must be Nevis first, at whatever level we operate on. And so I urge the people of Nevis especially to ensure that we have proper representation with meaning, understanding what our objectives would be going into the federal government, because we have been misled. The relationship was not at its best, but for whether political gain or self-gain, we understand that a lot of secrets were kept. The information was not put out there. And so if those secrets were kept so that you can get back into government, who knows what other secrets are being kept? Who knows what the real status of our affairs in Nevis are at this time? And so I am really urging the people of Nevis, especially, to consider this election as a do or die for our economy, as a do or die for our constitutional rights, and to make this election be the turning point of getting Nevis back onto a path of peace, progress, and prosperity. Thank you for those brief opening remarks.
Wow. Let me tell you, Janice, normally it doesn't happen for me, but I was so in every single word you spoke. It was absolutely great. That is representation that Nevisians need. And I'm not just saying it from a biased standpoint. The only thing, and you made that statement, that St. Kitts and Nevis relationship is getting further and further. The only thing that they have in common right now is the passport. The CBI monies, the monies that are made from the passport, which is very sad. We understand the relationships that we have between us as Kittitians and Nevisians. We are one. My parents are from Nevis. Your parents are from St. Kitts. My children were born in St. Kitts. And I am Nevisian. And so we understand that we are inseparable. But when it comes to the position that we have found ourselves in right now, it is very, very sad. I like, you have said all that you should have said. I think we should just end the show now, listen to some music, and have a great Friday, because it's so much more.
Yes.
We want to make sure, like I said earlier, we want to change the focus. And Janice, let me tell you, I don't know how much confidence you have in yourself, but I have all the confidence in you. You have a good understanding of where we are, and you have a greater understanding of where we should be. I know by the time we are finished, you're going to have even a better understanding of what it needs to take us to where we should be. Weeks, I have you.
Hey.
I don't even know if I want to hear from you, but I know I want to hear from you.
I said the same thing too. But good morning, everyone out there. Good morning to Miss Daniel and Sanjo. In a nutshell, Miss Daniel is very, very, very captivating. I just had to sit here and listen and be like, okay, all right, yeah, this is somebody who we need to pay some more attention to, a lot of attention to, and me personally, I won't get caught up today. I just want to dedicate the little time that I have to you today, Miss Daniel.
You want to hear?
Yes, I want to hear from
we
her.
have the discussion because we are having similar problems here. Janice made a statement that I have to, expound on the fact that these secrets that were kept.
Yeah.
These are the kind of politics and the politicians that we don't want in office. One who's going to keep secrets from us, create an impression that all is well.
Yes.
That is the best that this has ever happened. And sooner or later, 2 months later or 3 months later, you recognize that it was a lie.
It was a lie.
So if you're going to lie now, to hide what? To protect who? It definitely can't be the people. Because if you have people in there that is hurting the people, then you need to let us know what the situation is. Instead of being fired, you needed to resign. Janice, Nevis needs representation. You would have said it, that when NRP was in the coalition party with PAM, you saw lots of changes made. As a matter of fact, Nevis people started to recognize. Kittitians started to have a different relationship with Nevisians. I remember when I came down as a child, it was like, girl, go back home. You come down, you're going to sell lime and you can't get money to pay boat. It was that kind of feeling. You felt like the enemy. You didn't feel like you were from a sister island. And that was the problems that I had. That was the relationship that St. Kitts and Nevis had. You go and you look at a cricket match and you saw that tension. Antigua would come and play. It's not that problem. But St. Kitts had to beat Nevis. It was always that to show that you are less than us. I remember when you're going to school, you're waiting for the school bus to come, it can't come because it broke down. Those are the things that you had, the problems that you had. But now we are enjoying a relationship. We have enjoyed a relationship where we thought we were one.
Yes.
But now I'm seeing, and it's sad, it's really, really sad. The Premier has a great interest in St. Kitts. You're seeing that. You see him showing up at the launch because, of course, you hear the talk about the coalition government between PAM and CCM. But there's nothing wrong with that. But what you're seeing is that the Premier has that great interest of St. Kitts and Nevis becoming a coalition. Before, it was Nevis coming down and you sit in Parliament and you debate your situation. You talk about Nevis's issues. Now, you can't talk about Nevis issues when you're part of the problem. And that has become the problem. You came, you sat on your opposition bench, you could have talked, you could have said what Nevis is not getting and who was responsible for it. Now, you can't do that because you're part of the problem. And we're seeing that happening too much. Nevisians need representation. And I listened to you, and I heard what you say. And I'm going to ask you the question now. What plans do you or NRP has to take Nevis out of this situation of dependency to becoming that independent? Because you said it earlier too, Nevisians are hardworking people. We are self-reliant. We rely on ourselves. And that is one of the things I think that the leaders know. And you don't have to work too hard for Nevis people because Nevis people like to work for themselves. Yes. If it's not happening in Nevis, they're going to come. They will take the ferry every day and come to St. Kitts and go back up because that's who they are. They don't wait on handouts. Nevisians are not like that. They're different people. So I want you to tell me now, what are the plans that NRP have for Nevis? You have to change. It's a serious, real paradigm shift that has to happen. Yes. Because you have to put Nevis back in a position where you were self-dependent and self-reliant. And so when you go in Parliament, you can say what you want and not say what you have to say and later on come on and say you were lying.
Something different.
Yeah, you were lying because you were part of it. You were part of the problem.
Either not lying or either not aware. Either one, I think, is...
How can you not be aware? Then you make it even worse.
Well,
lying makes you feel better. If you're not aware,
you ain't paying attention.
You're sleeping on the job. And you're not paying attention. It's only about you then.
Yes.
So don't use I'm not aware. That's I wouldn't use that excuse.
But that's what they said. How many times they said that they're not aware of this program, I'm not aware of that program.
Yes.
And then, you can recall the 18-page letter and certain things that were being questioned. You would see the response that, with specific dates when things happen. But, when you have multiple jobs and multiple responsibilities, it's very difficult for you to pay attention to everything that is going on. But I think what the people of Nevis...
Well, let me stop you there. I want to interject on this. Multiple jobs, no results. So it's a multiple jobs on whose benefit? For whose benefit? Because there's no benefit coming from the two jobs.
Well, it's clear. We've already indicated it's self-serving, really. It really could not have been that the three CCM representatives came down to fight for the best interests of the people of Nevis. If that were the case, you would have seen the same way that the motion of no confidence provision was in the Charlestown Accord. It's the same way that you had a provision for the CPI proceeds. It's the same way that you had a provision for geothermal financial support. It's the same way that you had an agreement with regards to grant funds that are received. And, you asked me a question, but now I'm answering this one, so I'm going to expand a little bit on this. And so when we look at, for example, the Charlestown Accord had a provision for financial assistance with geothermal exploration and implementation. And we have heard the Premier at numerous press conferences, on numerous radio shows talk about we're in some stage of negotiation, the final stage. We're near to the finishing stages. Never one time did he mention that we're not getting our share from the Charlestown Accord, from the federal government to assist us with geothermal energy. So the Charlestown Accord was really put there to entice the people of Nevis, to give them 3 seats to come down, to provide the prime minister with the opportunity to become prime minister with 1 seat at the time. But when you look at what the Charlestown Accord was being used for, our prime minister of agriculture and marine resources, the state of affairs with our fisheries in Nevis is deplorable.
Wow.
The fishers have to send down to St. Kitts to buy supplies. No, you have the same minister responsible for fisheries
In sync.
in St. Kitts and in Nevis. And no provision can be made for the fishers in Nevis to pay the same price for products as it's offered for down here. The fishers in Nevis have to pay more for their gasoline than the fishers down here. And you have the same minister. So to me, I thought that this would have been the easiest opportunity for us to elevate our fishing sector in Nevis, because trust me, you have the Charlestown Accord, every grant Nevis is supposed to get fair share. With every grant that came in, you can see the development in St. Kitts fisheries, but Nevis fishers, they're not seeing any benefit.
And the minister is from there.
And so even if you have to factor in the cost to catch a boat, because if you're going to use your own fishing boat, you're going to have to use fuel to come down to buy the stuff to go back up. And so just to show you that there really was no intent to make life better for the people of Nevis. It was all about give me this power so that we can go to St. Kitts. We had the Charlestown Accord in our back pocket, but they got into government and put the Charlestown Accord
Still
aside.
in the back. No, it's in the back pocket.
No.
still.
Yeah, put it aside, right? And guess what? We have an election coming up now. Let's pull it out
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
Let's pull it out again. But I think the people of Nevis have recognized you could not sit in cabinet for 7 years and not once make reference to the Charlestown Accord when people are crying for the electricity. You went and took a $12 million loan to buy a diesel generator that the people of Nevis must now pay for. Of course, we're still dependent on external fuel supply for the generator. You know that cost is going up. And so right now in Nevis, we have a situation where your usage is less than the surcharge. Now tell me, how can you say that your role is to make life better for the people of Nevis? You had the Charlestown Accord. You had the provision for geothermal energy. Even if you did not know how to articulate and to get that executed, you're going to buy a diesel generator. Well, ask the Prime Minister for the fair share to help you buy the diesel generator.
Exactly.
Rather than go and take a commercial loan and then tell the people of Nevis, make sure you all pay your electricity bill because we have a loan to pay.
Wow.
Huh? And so these are some of the things that we look at. These guys come down to represent, but nobody is seeing the benefit. Don't start talking about the $400 million and where it went. The unfinished hospital, no dialysis machine, etc. So people in Nevis, like I said, their lives are in worse condition because the cost of living keep going up. They can't get a salary increase. And this current government, locally and federally, really have just failed the people of Nevis miserably. And so what are we in a position now? The Premier would say that people of Nevis, we don't want to be mendicants, we don't want to be begging. But you sat in federal government for 7 years. Why not, as a bright attorney, why not move to legislate or revisit the Constitution? I know when former Premier Parry was in the relationship with Labour, NRP, constitutional reform was a big issue, a big topic. But things get deferred and get deferred and get deferred and get deferred. If your purpose, and you ask me what our plans and program, first order of business must be to revisit the Constitution with regards to the revenue sharing arrangement and establish once and for all. It is interesting that the Premier would say, he put a technical team together, and based on that assessment, they have recognized that billions of dollars came into the CBI program, right? When did he do that?
I don't know.
He did that, I think it was in February of this year. So what did you do for the last 7 years? And you said, oh, I'm waiting to, I don't know how much is coming in. So the way that you could find out now that an election is upon us, why didn't you do that work initially and set the stage? I made a post yesterday regarding if we're saying that in 2021 you had $588 million, and you're going to say, well, based on how much money I see, I want $5.5 million. Well, based on the calculation that I have done, $5.5 million is not 25%, is not the fair share that he's
He
asking
said
for.
what? Wait. No. I know maths is a little complicated. You're asking for fair share, which he says is 25% basically.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. And so if you make $58 billion,
No,
$5.5
$588 million came in 2021
2021.
alone.
alone,
alone,
right?
Yes.
And so that is when he said, well, he's going from 3.25 up to 5.5 because the amount of money that he see. So I'm like, well, how are you fighting for our fair share? Why you didn't ask for 25% of the 588 million? And then force the Prime Minister to justify? Because I am not going to do an NIA budget year after year and say, oh, $45 million from CBI proceeds. When in my mind, if I have to put in $100 million, and let
then
the Prime Minister come
discuss
back
it
and
now.
say,
Let's discuss
well,
it.
you know, it cannot be that. But not you put in 45 in your NIA budget. You come down and approve the federal budget, which says 45 million to Nevis, and then make noise. I mean, I think the entire Nevis population would have been behind the Premier if at any one of those budgets over the last 7 years, he said, you know what, I am not going to sign off on that federal budget.
Exactly.
I need to see our fair share in there.
Exactly.
But now, a local election is upon us. He's feeling the heat. He now has an opposition who is recognizing and pointing out all of his failures. And so whereas he felt like he could have spoken to the people of Nevis in his fancy words and in his GQ suit, because I listened to Milo yesterday saying, I come to work. Me ain't want no GQ. I taking off my tie, taking off my jacket, and I'm here to work. So coming around in your GQ suit and in the middle of a pandemic, putting out your big expensive watch on Facebook and all these kind of things, the Premier was not paying attention to the people of Nevis. He was not paying attention in St. Kitts. His job in St. Kitts was to go and get as many passports as he can. And, that's another discussion as to why he excelled in that area. So you're out there busy going all over the world, getting all these passports. So each time you come back and say, listen, I have some more visa-free places to travel, some more visa-free. So at no point in time you said, boy, the people in Nevis, let me try to put this in place for them. Let me try to legislate this provision so that at least going forward, it is not an ongoing argument, so to speak. But it's really a situation where you must have your priorities in place. Not only is not only the constitutional reform must be a first priority, we must also look at the disparity in programs between St. Kitts and Nevis. We know based on our on the Constitution, Nevis has autonomy over certain areas, but we are living in a world now where you must collaborate to get the most effective solutions.
Yes.
And while we have, for example, we look at the tourism sector in St. Kitts going in, leaps and bounds, cruise ship pairs. You have all of these hotel developments. Nevis has not
The
had a
airport
hotel.
has been, every minute you have
Yeah.
problems. I mean, work being done on airport, and Nevis still has
Constantly.
this little strip.
So when you look at that, if you come down and say, you know what, I think this gap between our tourism product and St. Kitts and Nevis is too wide, and it's getting wider. You must focus and say, okay, this is one of the things that I would want to be able to make sure I make a difference in terms of participating in the federal government. Because if you see what's happening in St. Kitts and you see what's happening in Nevis, what have you done to leverage your presence in the federal cabinet to at least get some of those gains over in Nevis?
Let's talk about tourism, because I've made that statement to somebody one time, and they look at me like, no, but it's happening in St. Kitts. Yeah, St. Kitts tourism is St. Kitts tourism. The tourists are coming to St. Kitts. What is Nevis share? How does Nevis benefit from the cruise ships coming to St. Kitts? How does Nevis benefit from the stayover tourists in St. Kitts? How does Nevis benefit from tourism in St. Kitts? You see, the problem that we have is because of the fact that you have a coalition government. They think that all policies are made in St. Kitts and forgetting that Nevis has its own Nevis Island administration. And so you are what they're hoping that whatever spill off Nevis give them, that is all. Nobody is looking about trying to see how you can improve on the tourism industry in Nevis from an NIA point of view. Nobody is trying to see how we can, work on other means and ways to stimulate our economy other than the CBI monies. And so this is one of the big problems that you're seeing, where St. Kitts has become the child of Nevis. We are waiting for our mother, St. Kitts, motherland. Nevisians are waiting for St. Kitts to make the decision.
Yes.
So what is the use of the NIA in Nevis then?
Well, you see, and this is where I think we have to really understand. The NIA has the autonomy to set its policies in place. I've been speaking a lot about blue-green and climate adaptation, etc. And so we can set our policies in Nevis that could be appealing to large investors who want to enhance their contribution to address environmental issues. We can do that, and these are the things that we're planning to do. But in the federal cabinet right now, you would not expect, for example, the PAM representative to say, well, I don't like how things are looking on Nevis.
Exactly.
That is
Yeah.
what the Nevis representatives are there to do.
Exactly.
Come down, you see what is going on, even before you come down, because we in NRP, we are already looking and seeing all of the areas where this current CCM, led federal representatives have failed us over the years. When you get to educational programs, disparities in St. Kitts and Nevis. So, but the interesting thing is, I do not see the opportunity for the current representatives to bring the issues of Nevis to the federal cabinet based on the portfolios that they have, except, like I mentioned, the Minister of Marine Resources, etc., because they would have allowed. We had a Department of Fisheries in Nevis, a Department of Fisheries in St. Kitts, and on the CCM's watch, the new federal legislation that deals with marine resources, etc., has consumed the Nevis fisheries into that legislation. And so these are some of the things. It's not constitutional, I don't think, because we have rights under the Constitution to manage our fisheries. And so while on one hand, we know that there are certain foreign obligations with regards to your marine space, etc., these are the things that we need to look at and ensure that we can, implement those provisions of the Constitution that is in the best interest of our people. But take, for example, the Premier, who is the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Minister of Civil Aviation in the federal government. When they have a cabinet meeting, do you think the Prime Minister wants to hear from him about Nevis? Or does he want to hear about foreign affairs and civil aviation? And so when you look at the different portfolios that you're going to be accepting, you must be able to indicate how are these going to benefit the people of Nevis.
So let me ask you a question.
But wait, I'm going to say this because I can hear the Premier now saying, well, I'm going out there getting all these visa-free travel. It's our St. Kitts Nevis passport, and we want our fair share. But yes, you did that part under your duties as a foreign minister. What did you do as your representative from Nevis to ensure that these things happen?
And this is a question I wanted to ask, because when you look, and it's serious though, when you look at Nevis Airport, you're going to tell me that you can't allow, it's only these private little crafts are coming in now. We're not seeing any activity at all on Nevis Airport. So if you want to extend, we did, CCM would have done some extension, and RP would have done, encouraged some of the extensions. So what happens to Nevis now? You all are just satisfied with those little private charters coming on Nevis?
You have to assess the situation, because one of the things that I have been hearing, and it's interesting, when I read the 6-page letter and the counts against the PM, one of them would have been transparency. I have been hearing for quite some time now that there is some private arrangement, some deal with an individual regarding development of Nevis's airport. And the question must be asked, how can the NIA execute a deal with an individual I know when you're going to be doing these sorts of things. No, nothing wrong with having a PPP, right? And you get a private sector. But this is after you have had your consultations, you have your models, you invite the public to, public hearings, consultations, where people can come in and see, okay, yes, this is what it's going to look like. Okay, we don't mind giving you a lease for 50 years, provided that you're going to do these things. But you cannot sit down in the little back room there with all your secrets and execute a deal with a single entity to develop, our public facility. Exactly. And there was a big song and dance about under NRP. We signed our airport to the federal government. Well, it's one country. It's one country, and yes, while maybe the deal could have been a better deal, I would do a deal with the federal government before I do a deal with a private entity without the public input, and let me qualify that, because you must have public-private sector initiatives to go forward.
Yeah.
NIA cannot do everything. But you do not treat the people of Nevis as if we do not deserve to know what is going on, and one person knows everything so that you can execute. No, so that airport is a situation that we're looking at very closely. The other situation is we have this one and only development, where you now have a situation where a developer is to be developing this hotel, facility. But now you understand that members of the NIA are part of the board of this private development, and I'm trying to figure out. So how you? It's almost the same thing. You file a motion of no confidence against yourself here.
Same thing.
Yeah.
When this developer fails,
yes.
Well, I'm not saying when they fail because I would not want them to fail. But should anything go awry, you're now subjecting yourself to the same penalties of the private developer. You have a regulatory role to regulate development, encourage development, provide concessions, etc. But I cannot begin to imagine where it is beneficial for the NIA to be in bed with the developers at this level, because this is where you're going to say, well, we need a favor. Oh, the NIA is holding us up, etc. And this is where you start to bend corners and
break rules and just to accommodate, because
stuff.
you're benefiting as an individual, and those are the problems that I'm seeing right now coming through, is where everybody, you don't know. I mean, the government is tied up with the private developers, and who do you, if something should go wrong, like you said, who do you blame?
But remember, this is also a problem that they have in the federal government, where deals proposals are being brought to the table, and when you look, you really find print a minister, firm, or something involved.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Those are the things that you spoke against.
Yes, you spoke
against. But it's happening so.
And you want to know execute it. You want to know.
So you're in there, and that's what I said, Janice, and I know, and I hope, and I'm not going to pretend like you're Jesus,
right.
And I'm not going to give the impression like you can make everything right. But I just hope that your intentions that you have is for Nevis and Nevis people. It's not about enriching yourself, because we see this. They enrich themselves, and later on when they fail, they realize, oh, the people have some problems. PAP is the only thing that is given to the people, or STEP is the only way people can go. There are no other alternatives. But you were in there for 7 years, you spent in there, and you're going to tell me now, 2 months ago you realized out of the 7 years that things are not going according as planned?
Sandra, and thank you, Weeks, for giving me the time, because
yeah.
So when you look at, for example, in Nevis, we've seen this Brownhill Communications, large facility employed, almost hundreds of people. You've seen the closure of the Mount Nevis Hotel. Yeah. You've seen the closure of the Nisbets Hotel. You've seen the Four Seasons, scaled back somewhat all during the pandemic. And the question must be, what is being done to provide opportunities for employment for our people? Mm-hmm. And when people have an opportunity to work, and I could tell you, Nevisians, when we have an opportunity to work, we will work, and we will do what we need to do. We don't like to beg. And so Here is the Premier on one hand saying, I don't want to beg the Prime Minister for anything, having sat there 7 years and did not do anything to prevent himself or anybody else from begging. When the businesses in Nevis are closing, his position is businesses are allowed to make business decisions. He, as a Premier, cannot tell the businesses what to do. When he would have given them all of these concessions so that they could come in, establish themselves, you must make the connection that you're giving these concessions so that they can provide employment opportunities for your people.
Exactly.
You're not just giving them concessions so that however you personally can benefit, and when they get ready to close, you just said, well, that's a business decision. And so when you look at that scenario, that these businesses have been closing and you're not seeing any urgency on the part of the NIA to try to at least develop some sort of new industry. The $400 million, what you hear, an incomplete Mondo track, incomplete water taxi terminal, incomplete hospital. The roads where the money has been going, they're still incomplete.
Yep.
Police station.
Police station looks like it's complete on the outside.
Can't fit a
Still-
fire truck.
Still incomplete. Can't fit a fire truck and it cannot fit the firemen inside because I understand the beds are like this big.
Yeah.
No windows on the inside. And so when you
It's a
look,
prison below a police station because you have to remember police. But it's sad though.
well, I'm saying there's no care. And just this morning I was sitting because Sandra, I must say, you've been asking me for a long time to come
Yeah.
down.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, let me come down. Let me come down today. But sitting there and you look at the waiting facility, when they would have said the monies were already in place to provide a proper waiting facility, proper parking facility, and you sit there. But this just gives you an idea of how the CCM government thinks about the people of Nevis.
Because if that is complete for them, that means
Yeah.
we're nobody.
No, the last thing they're saying, that was the first phase. Even though when the project was commissioned, they said they already have the funding secured. But again, the lies and the secrets. The lies and the secrets. You do not know what to believe. And I am saying, when Nevis was being developed under NRP, I mean, you would go to any of the community centers, for example. You go to NEBA. You see top class. You see Nevis. Here is the
true.
Premier going around the world saying that Nevis is a high-end destination. And when the people come, they have to sit under a tent from the water taxi.
Wow.
No, and so you look at these things, and there's a big disconnect. So speaking the words is quite easy.
Fooling people.
Quite easy.
It's
I don't like
talk.
to say fooling people.
No, but it's a fact.
It misleads people.
Misleading.
Because
Fooling
we're not
people.
fools in Nevis.
Well, I know.
Right? So don't fool. So if he's not fooling,
Well,
he's misleading us. And he has a way with words that people, but I think this is the last time because after all of the things that we would have taken the time to look at and realize that these people are not really representing the people of Nevis, point out these things to the people of Nevis. Understand that we're not getting proper representation at the local level nor the federal level. I think, I don't know what else we can do but to encourage the people of Nevis to come out and take this federal election as a do-or-die election. This has to be the election because, if they're misled again into thinking that you had a chance for 7 years and you did not make any improvements, you did not do anything with regards to Constitution, all you could talk about, and it's interesting, when you hear this guy talking about the number of visa-free destinations that there are, I mean, he has them on his phone and he goes through this place and that
Well,
place
you
and
don't
that
even know
place
the
and that
places.
place
Have
and
you
that
ever heard of
place.
someone? A lot of the places I never even hear of.
We can't even afford to go.
But then what? But then where is your list of things for Nevis?
Yeah, but no, but one of the things that was seriously promised though, and we understood why, was that visa-free access to Canada. So you're going to tell me
Yeah.
that because you're bringing 100 from different countries
Different
of the world that you
countries,
don't know
the
that
one for
equates
Canada
to,
doesn't exist.
it doesn't mean anything.
Doesn't matter.
But Sandra, this is the problem. This is the problem. And I can say, kudos for getting visa-free. Kudos for making our passport the number one passport in the region. Kudos to that, right? Now, what about the next step for the people of Nevis to benefit
from that.
all of that?
That's the whole
What
thing.
about that step? Which you had your team. I mean, you had your 3 CCM representatives. You had the will of the 4. And I'm certain had you brought the legislation to Parliament, bring it to Cabinet, I am certain that with 2 PLP representatives and the other labor, what they're going to do? Fight against this
majority.
legislation? And
This
so it
is-
seems to me, it seems to me that the premier expected to come down here, and somebody else would draft the necessary legislation, and say, how does this look to you?
For Nevis.
Yes, right? And I mean, here's a guy, he could file a motion of no confidence against former Prime Minister Douglas. He could draft all of these.
He drafted the
Yeah.
Chancellor Call, remember?
So
Yeah.
It's from card.
Yeah.
So you see, anything that deals with inclusivity and uplifting and building, it doesn't seem that the Premier is very good at that. Anything that has to do with divisiveness and breaking down and mashing up and feeling like I'm a man and I could do this,
Sheriff in town.
that's what he's good
Yeah.
at. People of Nevis don't want that. The people of St. Kitts and Nevis do not want that. We want to know that we can live together in harmony. We want to know that we could live together as brothers and sisters, and our representatives would do the necessary things to ensure that we create that type of environment that we can live that way. We're not getting that from CCM. Never have, and I don't think we ever will again.
Janice, I am intrigued. I listened to you, and before, I'm going to tell you what I felt about you. I felt you were this little Christian girl trying to get into this. You're going to be guided by God, and you're going to be the little Moses.
I still am. I still am.
I know, but then I recognize now that you recognize your role is that God help those, it's not in the Bible, my mother told me that, who help themselves, and you are ready to take Nevis to that other level. It's not that you are saying it. When I listen to you, I know that you're equipped. You have the information. You have done your assessment. You have done it well because the facts are there. You're not saying things that are not true. You are showing, you have presented the facts. And you have even said he have said the Premier doesn't understand the things that he says. He has said a lot of things that would have implicated him. Because first it was, it's the best relationship that Nevis has ever had under any coalition, basically, because that would have put him in a good light because he was part of the coalition. But then all of a sudden, there are problems. What the problems are, you can't say what the problems. The only problem that Nevis has, according to the Premier, is that we are not getting our fair share. Okay, let us see how we could work out the fair share. Get somebody in who's going to analyze where we are and what is right for Nevis, which is the best thing. All of a sudden now, it's going to take too long. Why? Because the intent was not for Nevis to get its fair share, but that monies could come in for other things. Because they've been getting, the Prime Minister would say, you come for 45 million, you come for 66 million. And he said it. We have never asked the Prime Minister for anything, and he said no.
Yes.
But I have an issue with that, because I don't understand this writing a letter for this, and I don't understand the Prime Minister giving.
Where the trails?
I have a problem with that, and when you campaign on good governance and these sort of things, on both sides, I don't see if this is not included in the budget, in the NIA budget.
Then he shouldn't be there.
Then I don't understand that kind of relationship, and so all of these are secrets.
But that's the problem that poses problems. When you are not getting what you're accustomed to, it's like a relationship. When you're not getting
So
what
both
you're
of them are at fault.
They're both exactly.
Both of them are at fault.
Because you feel like you asked the Prime Minister and the Prime Minister what he should have done, but he said it. That's what happened the last time. You are coming outside of the budget. Nevis wants this and it's supposed to be in the budget. We're supposed to debate it. And so after the debate is done, then you're going to send me a letter and you're going to ask, and it's becoming a habit. You're going to send me a letter after the debate, and then you're going to tell me this is what we want. And if we don't get it, then we are going to do otherwise. We're going to mash it up.
Wouldn't it have been better if you just say, let's sit down and work out this formula once and for all, if it's really for the best interest of the people of Nevis?
That's the same thing I've been saying. That's exactly what, so when the Prime Minister said to you, let us do this is the right way. So you won't have to send it after the budget.
Yes.
Let's do this the right way.
And
So
come
we
back
know
again
that that's
again.
part of the budget. Every year, this is what Nevis based on what revenue you receive. This is what Nevis's fair share should be. It should not be, because what happened the first time, it was when you look at it, is that you're not going to get the same money every month. Or are you willing to take a lump sum? A lump sum was agreed on. Okay, again, I understand. The Premier now wants to say, okay, that lump sum was agreed on, but things have changed, so let's see how we can change. But let's establish what is Nevis amount and what should sink its amount.
But Sandra, here is a question. Here in our NIA budget and in the federal budget, you would have 45 million. As I understand, the last time now, it's gone up to 66, an,
Yes.
an additional 21. But that extra 21 is not in our NIA budget.
So where is it going?
And we have asked, and we still cannot give the 10% salary increase.
Exactly.
So where is that money?
Well, Janice, let me tell you something. I'm glad that we end on this note because we have to follow the trails and find out where the money is. And so you need to come back.
Yes.
You
Thank
need
you.
to do
Most
your
definitely.
investigations and find out where the money has gone because Nevis people depend on you. We are talking the talk for too long. It's talk without action. And I said that before. We have to stop talking the talk and we have to start walking the walk. We have to change our focus. People have to now realize and recognize, because we have come to realize that politicians play games. And it's always in their own interest and not the interest of the electorate. What we do, we facilitate. We allow them to go in there to continue the game playing. They use certain narrative about keeping the promise, and you ask what promise, and up to now we can't see what the promise that is going to be kept. We have
Maybe the promise is a secret.
It's
One
a
of the
secret.
secrets that we
Another secret.
secret again.
Another.
Ignore the noise. What noise? Because you complain and you ask questions about where our money is going. Ignore that noise.
Well,
You don't have the
we
right.
in Nevis are going to be ignoring his noise now.
Okay, so you see,
We have to ignore that
Uh,
noise.
So
now.
this is the whole thing. So you can ramble on, you can use highfalutin words, you can say the same thing over and over again in different contexts, and people have to appreciate that. Well, we're out of time.
Wow,
and
already?
this yeah. And so we need to know if you can come back next week.
I can't commit to that
fo-
right now,
the
but I will
following week?
definitely let you know.
Because we need to follow up. Because what is happening is that we are hearing peace now, we forget about it, and then later on you hear another piece, and people need to put, it's a puzzle. You need to be able to put all the pieces in the right place, because after a while, when you realize you can't get it work out, you just leave it. We need to finish this puzzle, because it is not just for Nevisians, it's for Kittitians also. We have to reestablish proper relationships between the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, not between governments, because you have that. So because you're not getting what you want, you're breaking up. You tell people how bad St. Kitts is, and you look at Kittitians, we don't want to go back to that era where Kittitians and Nevisians were on different side of the spectrum. We want to continue that great relationship that we would have had, where Kittitians could come to Nevisians can come to St. Kitts and find employment, and Kittitians can do likewise. We need to rebuild that relationship, but at the end of the day, we have to make sure that we keep our politicians in check. Janice, you have offered yourself. Tell the people of Nevis what your intentions in the next 1 minute. You have 60 seconds in order to tell them what NRP can do different to what CCM is doing.
What NRP can do differently is to operate on the principles of our party, which is to be inclusive, to promote collaboration, and to ensure that Nevis is our first priority. That has always been the theme for NRP, put people first. We also understand that performance matters. It is not just a position for you to dress up every morning and feel like, yes, I'm going to work, but not delivering anything. And so we are at a turning point right now. The people of Nevis, we have never looked at federal election as so important. To all the public servants who are not able to get their raise, understand that we must have proper relations with whomever is in the government in St. Kitts. Understand that we have our local ordinances where we can set a path for Nevis, for the development of Nevis. These are the things that we must be able to do. These are the things that NRP would have done in the past. These are the things on which NRP stands, and these are the things that NRP would provide to the people of Nevis again. And so I encourage everyone, if you're not registered yet, please to go out and get registered. This is going to be an historic election in St. Kitts and Nevis, and I want at the end that the people of Nevis are in a much better position and have a much brighter future to look forward to than what we have right now.
You see, when I listen to words like that, and I listen to, when you have a good understanding of what is happening, and you hear people saying the right things and people are doing otherwise, I'm going to say it, Weeks, what is your message for the people? Because we are in a season where people have to focus on making sure that they make the right choice of putting a government that is for the people and not a government who's just going to look after themselves. The people have to start making sure that they place themselves in the position by electing a government that is going to look after them.
Well, I would just like to add that This election should be all about, I mean, as Janice said, if I could use that name, is about the people. It will be a game changer, and we need to understand that it is about opportunities and the right opportunities for the people. Don't let nobody come and sell you short for $1. It's about opportunities. It's about how you could put yourself in a position where you could provide for your family and provide for yourself in terms of small business opportunity, land opportunity, housing opportunity. This should be the focus of our people and our young people. And to you, Janice, I love the idea of bridging the economic gap between St. Kitts and Nevis in terms of tourism, education, agriculture. That is very, very important, and I think he captivated me, and he had me thinking all morning as to, how come I never thought about that? I didn't know that it was in such a bad shape, and I like the message, and I think that you should keep on promoting it and keep on telling it to the people, selling it to the people, because it's something that would benefit all the people, and not just one set of people.
I don't think it's a sale, though. I think it's awareness. People have become.
Yeah.
I was a student this morning, and I was very much happy in the position that I sat. I've learned so much from you, Janice. I have had people saying things, not articulating like you have. People have been making a lot of noise and eloquence in their speaking, but they have not articulated like you have done. So I have a better understanding now of what is happening in Nevis. I have a better understanding of how a coalition government should work. It's Nevis have its own island administration. We have a unique situation here in our Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis to other countries. You have your own island administration, and we need to see people who are going to make sure that they put Nevis first. St. Kitts has its position, and people who are elected in St. Kitts, you fight for Kittitians. People who are elected for Nevis, you fight for Nevisians. But it's not just about the CBI money. It's about other opportunities that Nevis should be getting, and is not and still have been shortchanged. We are not hearing that. We are just hearing about the CBI money and the position of prime ministership. These are the things that the argument. We in St. Kitts, we need opportunities for our young people. We need to stop giving them $150 on the way, begging and buying for votes. We need to present opportunities. We need a government who's going to tell us we are looking for the good governance agenda where it's about the people and policies. So we're looking for electoral reform, governments who can do that, constitutional reform. Our constitution needs to be looked at seriously now. Constitutional reform, integrity in public life. We've been asking for that for the longest while. We need transparency and accountability, and we need that at now. We need people who can present that, and we are not hearing it. I'm listening to all of the rollouts and all of the press conferences and all of the what do you call them? What do you call those little house town hall meetings? You're hearing all of that, but you're not hearing
no message.
No messages, no message. So we have a method, and I don't know what is the method to the madness, but it's ridiculous. I'm out of time. It was really, really intriguing. Janice, I need to talk to you some more. I need to call you and find out where you're at. And if you need help, I am willing. I am so excited to know that Nevis now has representation that they can depend on, and representation that they can trust. And I'm Nevisian myself. I've been looking for that. I've seen it coming, but I see that you're now bringing it. You're really bringing it to the forefront for Nevisians. And if Nevisians would give up an opportunity like that, well, there's nothing else we can do. COVID is still a factor. We see people are still sick. We see cases are rising. It means that we see everybody wants to party still. We're not seeing protocols being adhered to. So I'm going to say to you, this is the weekend. Again, you have to make sure that you wear your mask, hand sanitize. Social distance is a must. I've seen people who have come down with this cold. I don't know what it is. It's not a good thing to have. And we hope that you may continue to do what you're supposed to do. Our economy right now is very fragile. We're realizing that we're going into an election. We don't know what leadership is going to be there. We need people who are going to make sure, who have a good understanding of how to protect us and carry us. Right now, we are at a lull, and so we do hope that we do our part. My name is Sandra Kudiatison. It was a pleasure. Stay tuned to WinFM 98.9. Voices is up next.
Everywhere need God. Tell them easy no man. From your love, sing your believe. Come take